Jeremy Ziemak decided in his senior year of high school that he would dedicate his future to being a nurse and serving others through his extroverted and kind personality. Now, after years of working his way up the ladder, he served as a registered nurse for the Cleveland Clinic. Separating work life and home life can be hard, and sometimes that can be even more difficult for a nurse. This is Conversations with Cade. Welcome to episode 5 of Conversations with Cade. I'm your host, CadeCracas, and today I'm joined by Ashland University graduate Jeremy Ziemak, who has now dedicated his life to helping and serving others as a registered nurse for the Cleveland Clinic at the Avon Hospital. Jeremy, I appreciate you giving some time out of your day to join me here today.
Hi, Cade. How's it going? I appreciate you having me.
Of course, you're someone I really wanted to bring onto this podcast for a number of reasons, but specifically just your kind heart and your willingness to help others and always be a leader in every room that you enter. So, to start things off, you want to give us a little bit of a background information about yourself, kind of where you came from, what you did in college, and all that sorts?
Yeah, I really appreciate that intro. You didn't have to boast me up that much. I appreciate it. But yeah, I came into Ashland 4 years ago. Going on 5 actually now. Wow. Freshman, wanted to be a nursing major. My whole family's in medicine, so that really intrigued me, and I really wanted to make a difference in the world. So just a bright-eyed freshman coming into Ashland, hoping to make some friends, maybe join a fraternity, see what happens. Freshman year, I found myself rushing a fraternity. I really enjoyed it, found a nice big group of friends and guys that kind of gave me a little home away from home. And then kind of just spent the next 4 years dedicating, just hitting the books and kind of just going through life. I joined a lot of different things, either through Ashland University or through Greek life with my fraternity, tried to get different positions and leadership areas, worked at different areas on the campus, mainly the rec center. When I wasn't studying, just trying to, stay busy and give back when I can. Get away from studies because books aren't everything these days.
Exactly. So when you look at those things, I want to talk about one specific thing you just said before we hop into the rest of it. And you said books aren't everything and studies aren't everything. And while that is the case for most times, it might be more of like an old school style things where people are like, oh, you just got to hit the books. That's where you're going to really learn things. Outside of the books, what can you say you took away from your time in college?
Yeah. If you spend 4 years of your life just in a book, you're going to miss a lot. Things are going to pass by you and you're going to regret things at the end of those 4 years. My attitude going into it was, yes, I'm here to get an education. I want to walk out with a degree, but college is more about the life experiences, what you learn and what you can take away from those 4 years. I learned that you can meet some really great people and they can have a great impact on your life. They can help kind of determine where you want to live after college, what you want to do after college, what you want to associate yourself with. And it's truly just a time to find yourself. High school, I feel like everyone kind of has a path that they take. And then college, or, even if you don't go to college, that time after high school is kind of your personal take on how you want to attack life and jump into the real world as an adult. My biggest takeaway from the 4 years is you truly can make friends, families, and you can take away much more experience-based opportunities rather than just an education.
I love that. It's a great message, especially for anyone looking to enter into college and kind of lost in that aspect, especially because we're hitting that time period right now where students are finally starting to enter college. It's around August right now, so students will be starting up school here soon. And that's a great message for anyone out there who's just trying to get their foot rolling and really start to get in that door of college and try to experience things. So let's talk about something else here. Let's shift back more to the nursing side of things. When did you really decide that you wanted to become a nurse, and when did that kind of hit your head? Was that in high school? Was that in college? Was that when you were younger? What really planted that seed for you?
Yeah. No, nursing kind of came late in high school. During my time in high school, I really wanted to be a cop. I had all dreams set on being a police officer, maybe going to college if I did for like criminal justice, stuff like that. And then a lot of stuff kind of went down in the world, and the view on police kind of shifted. And I just didn't know if I could handle that kind of situation going into my professional area. So I kind of took a step back and I realized, where else could I help people? And then the answer was right in front of me. My family, like I said, is just super heavily involved in just different aspects of medical care, and giving back. So, I'd say about senior year of high school, I finally realized that's what I wanted to do, nursing. I was halfway in between finding if I wanted to play football in college or if I wanted to just kind of dedicate nursing. Nursing is one of those degrees that is very hard to kind of do more than just that. So I kind of took a self realization right before graduation and realized I wanted to just commit to my studies. That's how I found Ashland. Great little program, nursing program, about an hour away from my hometown. So yeah, I'd say during high school senior year was when I really found it, that the passion there.
And that's awesome. When you hit college, then did you expect the workload to be as big as it became for you? And what was that workload actually like? Because I feel like you hear that very stereotypical response from people on the nursing side of things, like they're working all the time, they're always putting in countless hours. Is that actually what it's like coming firsthand from you?
Yeah, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's a pretty intense program. I think it was technically the Guinness Book of World Records hardest major at one point or something like that. They tell you in nursing school. Um, so I mean, from the jump, they tell you you're getting into something that you really need to be committed to. The first couple years, the way Ashland does their program, your freshman and sophomore year, it's a lot of prereqs. So it's not too crazy. It's some intense studies, but you don't have a lot outside the classroom. It's really when you get into your junior and senior year where you get into those clinicals and you have to spend time in classrooms, in labs, doing hands-on activities at those clinical locations. Ashland being in the heart of Ohio, you could kind of go as north as Cleveland, as south as Columbus, and east and west, like to Akron area and stuff like that. So, um, I mean, you got to dedicate definitely a lot of time and travel, and then also those studies in between there too. So it's a pretty intense program, but nothing that is impossible. Nothing's impossible.
Did you ever get that sense of that you were missing out on opportunities or times with your friends during those first 2 years, or did that really start to come towards the tail half of your college career?
I'd say more the tail half. Freshman sophomore year, I felt like I got out enough, and I was still on campus enough, and I never felt like my major's different. It's those second 2 years when you're waking up at 5 in the morning to go travel to a clinical site on a Tuesday, and your friends don't have class till 10:30 in the morning. You kind of feel that difference. Or you're getting home at 7 o'clock at night, but all your friends have been off since 2. That's when you kind of start to pick up that my major's a little bit different. I'm putting in something else that other people don't quite necessarily have to, but every major has their own situation going on and they have their extra prereqs and everything. But yeah, it's definitely in that latter half when you're more hands on, you definitely start to pick up on, you know, other people don't necessarily have to be away as long from their dorms.
And so now that we've covered those first 2 years of your college career, when did COVID hit you? Because that's a big factor.
Yeah, so that had a lot of influence too. COVID actually hit our freshman year. It was actually over spring break. A big group of us was down in Tennessee. We had a cabin. We were enjoying spring break. And then we get an email from the university saying we're not coming back home, or we're not coming back to Ashland for spring break. You'll get a date and you'll come collect your items. The COVID
Wow.
19 pandemic hit. And yeah, so freshman year, spring semester, and then going in, we came back in the fall of sophomore year, just with some super heavy guidelines, as everyone knows. And then yeah, sophomore year was kind of a blur when it came to mask mandates and social distancing and still online learning, but a little bit more mixed. And then that didn't really clear up till about junior year.
And so did that all affect the things that you were learning in the classroom, even just your program in general? Because I mean, that's got to be a very new situation, not only for the nurses in the real world, but also those preparing to actually become one as you were. I mean, that had to have been a very difficult time going from that switch of, okay, here's what we're learning now. And okay, we've got to start to focus towards this because we don't know how big of a deal this is at that point.
Yeah, that was a big shift. We had some input from the actual nursing profession of the unknown and the toll that the pandemic had on hospitals and the nursing profession. But I mean, on the academic side of that, we basically went from people were hands on in the hospitals front line to they don't want to risk the spread of an unknown infectious disease. So therefore, it became a lot more virtual, a lot more Zoom classes, as everyone remembers. But yeah, it was a big shift because you didn't have those hands-on experiences anymore. They did their best. There was a lot of simulations online and a lot of different programs to kind of help you, you know, help teach you the hands-on things without doing them. But yeah, definitely a big culture shift there.
And so then heading into your junior and senior years, what did you take away from that COVID pandemic that you really started to appreciate more towards the tail half of your college career?
I really appreciated. It was kind of enlightening to see how much the world kind of rallied behind healthcare workers. It was a nice confidence boost of going into the profession that people care for you, and they pay a little bit more attention and more recognition because it got hit so hard. And then also it kind of prepared me that this profession has a lot of people leaving the bedside because of the stress or the trauma that they endured during this time. That there's going to be a lot of opportunity for me to take over and help out where I can and kind of assess where the needs are in even my local neighborhoods of healthcare needs. A lot of people were negatively affected by this, and our profession, I felt, got hit some of the hardest. And it was kind of a shell shock, but also kind of a confidence boost of people are rallying and helping us as much as we're helping them.
So did you ever have kind of a mental lapse where you were kind of like, am I sure I really want to do this? Especially with, like you were saying, I mean, people were leaving because of the high stress situations. I mean, you were in such an unknown time period. Even now, it's still slightly unknown at times. When you were in college, especially at the young age you were, did you ever go, maybe this isn't for me?
Oh yeah, I think there were a couple times freshman year just sitting in the dorm room studying. It was like, wow, am I sure I want to do this? And even to this day, I mean, I had a couple patients last week that it just, you love them and you really want to care for them, but the stress and toll of the job sometimes just kind of carries into your personal life, so it makes you question it. But at the end of the day, being able to help someone and seeing the look on their face or their family's face and the appreciation that you're giving their loved one, you really can't beat it. Money can't buy that. Nothing can buy that experience, and it's a truly once in a lifetime opportunity to help that person. In college, same thing. You feel the stresses of school, but you have that motivation of that care and that experience that you can't wait to have with someone. So.
And you talked about in your junior and senior years, you really had the opportunity to go out in the field and start to work in more high pressure situations and even just more real world esque situations.
Mhm.
What were those like? You want to walk us through those, especially for people who may not know the nursing major and what that really entails?
Yeah, I thought Ashland did a great job with it. Junior year, for example, we'd go out in groups, about 6 to 8 people, normally not that much bigger than that. And you would go to a hospital floor, commonly called med surge floors. So those are your typical hospital floors where people are recovering from surgery or they have an illness, so they're getting treated. Um, we'd go out and 6 or 7, maybe 8 people in the group. We'd have one instructor with us. We'd be assigned a nurse for the day and a patient for the day, and we would just pretty much help the nurses out, and they would kind of teach us in their everyday to day operations how to be a nurse. Sometimes, as a student, you get super overwhelmed because you're like, I've read about this in a textbook or I watched a YouTube video on this, but I've never actually seen this done in real life or know how to handle a situation or a real life patient. But once you kind of rip that band aid off, it kind of exposes you to it and you're good for the next time. So between junior and senior year, you just constantly work at those clinical sites and locations. You gain that experience. You make connections with the staff and the faculty of Ashland, and they just do a really good job at preparing you for what you can expect in your own profession.
So in the first episode of Conversations with Cade, I was able to talk to a correctional officer, and one topic that gets brought up a lot, especially in the service field, when you have people like yourself and like police officers, firefighters, they have this sort of shell shock moment when they first enter a real situation or a real thing that hits them and impacts them. For you, can you name what that impactful moment was, or if you have one of those where you're like, "Wow, like I'm actually here and this is actually happening," type of moment?
I would say it was my first code situation. So a code in a hospital basically means that a patient either lost a pulse or they stopped breathing. Um,
Wow.
Basically, what that means is that person needs life saving intervention in that moment to have the best foreseeable outcome. In that situation, I was a nursing student. I was pooled. They said they told my nurse that was with me the day. I know you have a student. Let's go have them experience this. You know, this is really good for them to be a part of. So I think kind of that first time I was thrown in, I did compressions on the patient, chest compressions on the patient. I think that first time in that moment, you're kind of like, this is everything coming together. You hear the doctor telling the nurses orders on what to give to the patient. We had family kind of outside the room, so you kind of get those cries and the fear in the family's voices in that situation. You get the nurses working as a team with the respiratory therapists and the pharmacists in that situation, and you truly have everything coming together at once. Um, it's kind of like a scary moment, but at the same time it's a very beautiful moment in terms of teamwork and just the power of 15 brains in one room working together to help one person.
That's incredible, and that's such an incredible way to explain that the way you did at the end there. I mean, for you, did it hit in the moment or did it hit after the fact of, wow, this actually just happened type of thing?
A little bit of both. In the moment, you kind of get that shell shock feel, that adrenaline rush where everything kind of goes numb and you just go on, autopilot and you're moving. And then you kind of get that debrief after, walking away from the situation, like, wow, that just happened. And then you kind of replay it in your mind and go, is there something I could have done different? Did I feel like a good part of that team? Did I feel like the team could have done something different? And then as a student in that situation, it was truthfully just the books taught me, what to know about the body. My professors taught me how to handle the situation, but now I finally did it for myself and I have that personal experience. Um, so yeah, it was definitely a mix of in the moment, but a lot of it came after. Yeah.
Yeah, is that stressful? Because if you think about it, you think about all these situations where, okay, I'm a barista at Starbucks, right? And I messed up someone's coffee. But now if you mess up, you're messing with someone's life. Is that ever something that goes through your head?
Yeah, every day you clock in, you kind of think about that. But that kind of goes back to that's why the program is so rigorous over 4 years. That's why your professors are so not necessarily hard on you, but so adamant on you that you know your material and you know your stuff. Because, yeah, I mean, a mistake could end a life, plain and simple. In the nursing realm, any sort of medicine can alter someone's body chemistry. Um, and there's that little element of stress, but there's also that element of I did this for 4 years to be here, and I know what I need to do.
And so when you left college and entered the real world per se, what was that next step for you in finding a job and finding a career?
Yeah, a lot of factors. Pretty much for any college grad, the basics are: where do you want to live, what do you want to do, um, how's the pay, how am I going to pay back my student loans, and just how do I want to live my life now that I'm on my own. For me, it was I'm from the Cleveland area, so I wanted for the most part to stay in that area. So Avon's a beautiful city right outside of Cleveland. Um, I really like the area. It's right off the lake, so I found that hospital there. The Cleveland Clinic's a great organization, so I found the position actually while I was in school. I applied, interviewed, and got the job before graduation, which was a really big confidence boost. And then kind of going down the track of ICU, I really liked my critical care areas. I was really interested in either the emergency room or the ICU. And the ICU had a little bit more organization per se to it rather than an ER. So I went down that route.
And so what exactly is the ICU? I mean, I think everyone knows what an ICU is, but what for you, what does an average day look like?
Yeah. I mean, ICU, it's our critically ill patients. It's the patients that come to the ER and their disease process is so exacerbated that they can't go to a regular floor, or it's someone on the regular floor that kind of deteriorates enough to become critically ill. So typical day for us, clinic does a great job. We have two patients normally assigned per nurse. So that's a 2-to-1 ratio. You hear about these ratios in healthcare all the time. I feel like my unit does a great job. So you'll be assigned 2 patients. You get report from your nurses leaving for the day, and then you take over the care. Pretty much, it's a slew of medications, nursing interventions, and basically just support to the patient when whatever can get them through that day and kind of help better them. Personally, I like to set one goal each day for each patient to kind of see what we can get done to make it one step closer to them leaving the ICU.
And so one thing I feel like I've heard a lot about in the healthcare space, and even the space of just serving others and helping others, is that disconnect, and that you have to disconnect yourself personally from the patient in a sense, or else you could lose a lot of your mental well-being in that sense. Has that been a hard thing for you? Have you tried to do that? I mean, what's your mindset in that scenario?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm a very extroverted person, so my goal is to make a friend with everyone that I come in contact with in some way, shape, or form. So it's hard for me to disassociate fully. Um, at the end of the day, it is a patient. You're the nurse, and you're taking care of them. But it's hard not to establish some sort of connection throughout the day, whether it be with that patient or with the patient's family, to ultimately provide the best care and comfort for them. I'd say the biggest suggestion or the biggest uh, piece of kind of separating that is really just your work life balance of don't bring it home with you. If you have a great day, that's great. Use that motivation when you come home. But also, if you have one of those terrible days, leave it in your car ride home. You don't have to necessarily leave it at the hospital, but use your car ride home to kind of debrief and relax, think about your day, and then just hit that reset button for when you walk home and you walk through the front door back at home. You're the most comfortable, and you're not carrying your work into your home.
Has that been hard for you at all?
Knock on wood, not too bad so far. Obviously, I'm still young and new to the work environment, but I haven't had a day too much where I got home and it just absolutely ruined me. But it's also about what you want to come home to.
No, for sure. And is this a goal that you want? Do you want to stay with the ICU for the rest of your time as a nurse, or what would you like to do future wise?
Healthcare is an endless opportunity. That's what's so great about the profession. In my near future, I love where I'm at, so I could for sure see me staying. I'd say the biggest thing is maybe just moving up to more of a leadership role. But in terms of the area of the hospital, I love the critical care area. So yeah, the ICU is definitely a good home for me, I think.
And leadership wise, what do you think draws you to wanting to pursue a position like that? And what for you is that driving factor to kind of lead people and be someone that people look towards?
Exactly that right there. Just trying to be that person that can help, that person that, you know, takes away any issues or struggles that someone might be having and being able to resolve it with, the opportunity of, whether it's a patient staffing issue or patient to nurse staffing issue, a ratio issue, whether it's a personal issue that someone needs figured out. Um, whether it's an organizational issue. It's really just being that person that can help solve some problems. I always love being a problem solver, and a team player. So I think that's probably the drive right there, is just being able to help someone out or help the others and be someone there that can just help guide them, and help lead them to a more comfortable work environment.
No, for sure. I think one big thing that I feel like you always kind of give off is that leadership and that extroverted personality. And it translates extremely well into situations like you've described when you have to help others, you have to serve others, you have to be that person that people look towards. And so, is there some things that you think that you need to work on to help yourselves in these scenarios, especially when it comes to the mental side of things, like we keep going back to?
I think definitely just making sure you take time for your own mental well-being. When you're put in a leadership role, there's often times where people come to you for advice and you for help, and you sometimes forget to help yourself out. So definitely, I would suggest that to anyone looking to take any sort of leadership role. Just definitely make sure you're taking time for yourself and setting yourself aside. And it's okay to occasionally say no if it means to better yourself. It's not selfish, especially in a world like this one where it's super stressful. um, you're allowed to take time for yourself, and I think a lot of leaders specifically don't do that, enough because they're constantly thinking about the others and rather than thinking about themselves.
And if you had to give some advice to people looking to entering the field that you're currently in, whether they're in high school, whether they're in college, whether they are out there out of college and they want to get into this, if you had to give some advice, what would it be?
If you feel like you have the drive and the passion, definitely go for it. The worst thing that could happen is it doesn't work out. But just having that inquiry and that little gut feeling that you think you could be a great healthcare here or a healthcare professional, um, it truly could be something that could change the lives of others. So go for it. There's nothing wrong with going for it.
And then if you had to give some advice to stay strong mentally and stay strong in that sense, to always be able to go out there and serve others and try to disconnect and be you at the end of the day and be happy with what you're doing, what would it be for there?
I would say surround yourself with positive people or positive things. I There's some times where I find myself in a mental lull, and thankfully the people around me are so well versed and positive and upbeat that they help me through whatever I need in that situation. Definitely have someone in your corner if you can.
Well, I love that, Jeremy. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
I really appreciate it, Cade. Thank you so much.
Of course. And if people wanted to stay up to date with your journey and follow you on social media, how can they do so?
Instagram's literally just my name, Jeremy Ziemak. And then, I mean, you can follow Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, but I'm not too active on the other ones.
Well, I appreciate you once again, Jeremy. It was a great episode, and we will see you guys in episode 6 of Conversations with Cade.